Heritage Curator of Barnsley Museums, and today I'm going to take you on a whistle-stop tour round our museum, Experience Barnsley, to look at some of the treasures, exciting things, unusual things, and some of the mysterious and wonderful objects we have in our collection. So I'll just take you first to the very first case in the museum, and we've called this Barnsley's Memory Box. And in essence, this sums up everything that Experience Barnsley is. It's the repository of the borough's memories and stories and photographs. So it's a giant memory box. The building even looks like a big square memory box, a tin full of stuff. So in this area, we've got a hodgepodge of different objects from all different time periods. So, for example, our first object I've chosen for you is this wonderfully wacky, colourful Mousetrap game, and it's right from the 1960s when the game was first released. I had one of these in the 1980s, and it certainly brings back loads of retro memories of playing the game. And the way the game works is it takes ages to set it up, and you basically create a trap for a mouse, and you wind this crank here, and a mousetrap drops down. It was always really exciting as a kid, and this is the original first edition of the game. It was donated by Denise Parker of Darfield, who is one of our museum donors, and I guess it stands as an object that a lot of people can relate to. So when we get people in the museum, they'll often say, I had one of those, or my grandma had one of those, or that reminds me of this, and that's the sort of thing we're trying to achieve in the museum, to evoke some sort of reaction and to kind of recall people's memories from the past. Our second object today is Stephanie Hurst's amazing Fisher-Price record player, which you can see down here in the corner. Stephanie Hurst is a famous DJ working for the BBC and commercial radio stations, and Stephanie is from Eversley in Barnsley. She was born in the 1970s. And Stephanie's had an amazing life. She's excelled in her career with music, and this object is a record player. And she often says this is what kind of made me so interested in records, the spinning of records, because she used to play with this as a child. Okay, one of our more unusual objects in the collection, we've got a medicated toilet paper made by a company called Izal, and it's here in a long frame. And it's got illustrations by celebrated illustrator and cartoonist Heath Robinson, and on it you can see kind of lots of characters doing silly things. So if you're on the loo, you could entertain yourself at the same time. So this area of the museum is actually one of my favourite. It's quite a poignant area of the museum, quite emotive, because it's all about people coming and going from Barnsley, immigration to Barnsley through the centuries, and immigration from Barnsley, people going to war, refugees coming into Barnsley and contributing to the town through waves of generations and centuries. We've actually called it Barnsley Meets the World, and we've got a wonderful photo here of some Barnsley soldiers outside the pyramids in Giza, and we've got a variety of objects. Some of them are quite sad, they kind of, they relate to war, but some of them are more positive as well and tell a lovely story. So in our cases, we've got lots of little objects that tell really epic, big stories, and you'll always find something new. And one of the objects I love the most are these horse brasses here on a wooden plinth next to a photograph of James Keyes, the World War I soldier, on his horse Canada. He had two horses, Canada and Teddy, and both the top hearts represented his horses. And James loved his horses. They were out in France and Belgium in World War I, and he looked after them, and so much so that both horses survived the front lines of that conflict, and they came back. And even more importantly, James Keyes survived, and he came back. So we're so lucky to have his horses' brasses here, the horses he loves so much, and also some wonderful photos of him. I do like him as a character. You do get attached to people in the museum when you read about their histories. James once got reprimanded for being drunk and not letting the sergeant inspect his rifle, so I always find that quite a funny story. He must have been a bit of a character. Okay, and quite an emotive object in our collection that tells a story of adversity and bravery. It's quite remarkable, and it sometimes makes my skin tingle when I look at this object. Here you can see the propeller of what we think is the propeller of the Whiteley bomber that crashed in Pogmore in 1942 on the 6th of January, and the bomber was flying over in the war over to France, but it got into trouble with the air conditions, so it had to start flying back over. It was full of bombs because the plane hadn't dropped any of its bombs, and it was getting into more and more technical difficulties. Unfortunately for us, this plane came down over Barnsley, and imagine a big bomber full of bombs coming down into an area like Barnsley full of terraced houses. Would be devastating. The Canadian pilot of the plane was called Captain Hollingsworth, and he kind of manned the aeroplane whilst he gave instructions to his team to get out. So they all jumped out of parachutes. Some of them landed in Lock Park, and as the plane flew over Dodderford, he managed to evacuate all his crew. Unfortunately, Captain Hollingsworth went down with his plane because he had to guide it away from the terraced houses. So it crashed into a quarry, and he's thus saved the lives of possibly hundreds of people. So we've just done a bit of decorating in the museum because we like to redo sections of the museum as and when time and budget allows. So this year we've done a bit of wallpapering, and this wallpaper is a map of all the heritage sites in Barnsley. In fact, it's not all of them, it's just a flavour of the type of thing you can find in Barnsley. From in the east of the district, the Maurice Dobson Museum in Darfield, we've got the Mill of the Black Monks, the Swanee Pond in Kendry, Pothouse Hamlet, Wentworth Castle Gardens, the Penistone Viaduct in the west. So there's loads of points of interest, and we really did this to celebrate the whole borough of Barnsley, not just experience Barnsley, because there really is so much to see and do, and if you can get out and about around the borough. This was part of a project called Barnsley Heritage Connects. Here you go, lovely logo, which is our project that celebrates heritage, and you can follow that on social media if you want to find out more about what's going on in your area. Okay, and a relatively new case of the museum, it's only been here 2 years, is this wonderful new museum case, and we like to call this the community case, because about every 6 months we change what's in this case, but we don't do it ourselves, we do it with communities. We co-curate the displays to tell the story of different organisations in Barnsley. So this time we've got the wonderful Schwäbisch Gmund Society. So Schwäbisch Gmund is our twin town in Germany, and this case celebrates the society that promotes culture and friendship between our German twins. The Schwäbisch Gmund Society donated a lot of objects in here, including a really colourful costume from a Guggen band, which is a Germanic type of band that makes loud brass noise, and that's from the Barnsley band from town. And here we have our homage to sports in Barnsley. In this case, the idea behind all of the objects was to include grassroots level sports, amateur sports, as well as kind of world famous sports, including things like Dickie Bird, and we've got Alan Hydes, the table tennis champion. We've got some Busby Babes, but then we've also got things like some fancy bird and pigeon trophies, and we've got some grassroots swimming and amateur boxing. So there's a bit of everything. We've even got, bit controversial now, but we've got rabbit coursing back at the Queen's Ground, which was where the Metrodome was, where people used to chase whippets for money. So there's layers of history of different sports. And one recent donation that we're incredibly proud of is a football shirt. So here's Amanda Stoner to tell you a little bit more about this wonderful object.
About 3 years ago, my mum and dad were moving house, and my dad said, "Hey, do you think the museum would like your grandma's football shirt?" Now, I'd heard about this football shirt, but I'd never actually seen it. So he got it out for me, and I filled in a form, and the museum decided that it was actually a good item to have. It's only a small little red shirt with the letters M and B on the pocket, standing actually for Monk Breton. Because my grandma wore this when she was 15 years old in 1926. Her father, J.H. Dodd, ran a provision shop in Monk Breton, and he decided that a good way to fundraise for the people suffering from the general strike was to start a women's football league. I think it was a bit of a novelty at the time, but my grandma decided that she would join in as well. The ladies went up in the final against the Honeywell ladies, and unfortunately Monk Breton ladies lost. Now, it would be lovely if anybody has any relatives who played for the Monk Breton ladies. They wore white shirts, and it'd be interesting if we could have a pair with this, because we've actually got photographs of the teams. Amazing. Some of the teams actually had their own managers and trainers. So if anybody out there has got a shirt from the 1926 Honeywell ladies football team, get in touch with us here at the museum. It would go alongside my grandma's quite nicely.
And we can't mention sports in Barnsley without mentioning the wonderful Barnsley Football Club, the Reds, which is one of the oldest football clubs in the world. And at the moment we're really crying out for objects to redisplay our football case. In terms of objects we get, we do struggle to collect football related memorabilia. Maybe it's because people love football so much they keep everything, but we'd love to be able to tell the story in a new way. So if you've got any stuff, get in touch with us. Okay, so moving swiftly on, here we are at Bouncy Culture, and this area of the museum relates to people who've created, artists, filmmakers, photographers, poets, people who've contributed to Barnsley in a cultural way. So we've got some really iconic objects, including Becky from Coronation Street's leopard skin coat that was seen on the cobbles for many a year. Becky is actually in real life Catherine Kelly, a very, very talented Barnsley actress. But we've also got a generation before her. We've got Stan Richards, cap from Emmerdale there. Stan Richards played Seth in Emmerdale for many years, and he was a much-loved Barnsley man. And here we have his iconic knitted cap. It's one of the favourite objects that people see in the museum, and it's because it reminds them of years gone by. Stan's been in many people's living rooms over the decades, so it's something that people are very fond of. We've also got a collection relating to comedian and footballer Charlie Williams, an amazing guy. And here we have a little collection to none other than Kes. Here you are, taxidermy Kes. And this relates to Barnsley-born, Hoyland-born Barry Hines, who wrote the classic novel A Kestrel for a Knave, about Billy Casper and his pet kestrel. And it's about growing up in kind of poverty and kind of a northern mining town. And it's a worldwide classic and was made into the film Kes. So this little area celebrates that very well-known area of Barnsley's culture. Now, everyone knows that Barnsley is also famous for a good night out and people having fun. So this area of the museum is called Day Trips and Party Nights, and it's all about those wonderful trips we had as children, club trips to the seaside, family holidays, but also about nights out around town and some of the famous night venues of the town, including tribute acts such as Elvis here. And here we have this wonderful black and silver sequined drag queen's dress from John Lineker, who performed with the Divine Divas in Darton. And in fact, we have started a collection of LGBTQ objects to tell diverse stories of Barnsley. So we've recently collected objects such as famous illustrator Kate Charlesworth's pencil case that she took it to college when she was first learning how to draw. Barnsley was not only built on partying and culture and sport, but the main reason why the town's here is because it was built on industry. The glass, linen, coal industries and many other industries. And in fact, quite a lot of inventions were made in Barnsley, ingenious things. We've got things like the wonderful Orangina bottle, as you can see here. So if you remember that, it's a bit of a retro drink, but what a cool bottle that was. We've got inventions like the Joseph Brammer's unpickable lock. Here we have some Siag lamps from the famous Art Deco SIAG factory that was once stood by the train station in Barnsley, and they invented battery-powered miners' safety lamps. So this section of the museum is all about coal mining, which was a huge industry in Barnsley, and many generations of people from Barnsley worked down the pits and around them and supporting industries. So we have things about the miners' strike at the top, we've got commemorative things, we've got things about the mining disasters, which were truly terrible. One of my favourite objects in this area is this wonderful, unusual object here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a chamber with a little door, and it's called a humane canary reviver, and it's from the mid-20th century. Mines could build up with poisonous gases such as methane, and that was poisonous and explosive. So canaries, the little yellow birds, were used to identify where there was poisonous gas, because the canaries would faint from the poisonous gas before the humans even noticed. So a canary would be put in this little box here, and that would be taken down the mine. It does seem quite cruel, really, in a way, but the canary dying would be better than a whole team of miners dying. But this very object was actually more humane, because on top, can you see there's a little chamber of oxygen, a little canister? So if the canary keeled over, the miners need to get out, there was poisonous gas, but they would turn on the oxygen, and the oxygen would revive the canary, so the canary could fly another day. And this area of the museum is about Barnsley Trades, shops and professions. So we've got wonderful objects like a 1970s nursing cape from Beckett's Hospital. We've got Albert Hurst's very own black pudding bike that he used to deliver pies and black pudding on. A lot of people from Barnsley remember that. And then we've also got some wonderful decorative tins here from the 1920s right through to the 1980s. These were made by the famous Barnsley Canister Company, who were also known locally as the Tin Oil, and they're just such fun objects, retro objects, that a lot of people can remember in Barnsley and further afield. And a relatively new collection is our Benjamin Herald collection. Now, some people might know Benjamin Herald as the iconic jewellers on Eldon Street in Barnsley, and we've actually managed to collect an engagement ring that was found in London from Benjamin Herald from the 1930s or 40s. So if you went to buy your wedding bands or engagement rings from Benjamin Herald's, you also got a free bread knife. And here we have our central feature case, which features lots of different objects from different time periods, often much bigger objects from the town's original crest, with the glass blower, the miner, and the shuttles from the linen industry, right through to this wonderful sedan chair. I'm going to pass you over to my colleague Gillian Thorpe to talk more about it.
Hi, I'm Gillian and I work for Barnsley Museums and Heritage Trust. We're a charity that was set up to raise funds to support the fabulous work done by our friends at Barnsley Museums. The great thing about my job is that there are so many different elements to it, one of which is to add new things to the museum collections or look after things that are already in it. One of those things, and incidentally one of my favourites, is this sedan chair, which was restored in 2021 thanks to donations from supporters of the Trust. The sedan chair belonged to Anne Rachel Hurst of Ouslewaite Hall, Worsborough. She was said to have been a fierce, busy, dominating woman, but thankfully for the two men who had to carry her, she was also quite small. The sedan chair was used for short journeys, and longer journeys were made using her chaise. She was born on the 12th of October 1771 at Stixwold Abbey, Lincolnshire, and she married her second cousin William Elmhurst of Worsborough in 1790. Their first two children were William and Thomas, and they both died tragically in 1799 after getting lost in Wombwell Woods. They perhaps drank contaminated water and they then contracted a fatal infection. Their mother was devastated by their deaths, but she went on to have 5 more children: Robert, another William, another Thomas, and then Richard, Anne and Elizabeth. After the death of her first 2 sons, Anne Rachel kept 2 William III crowns, which had belonged to her first William and Thomas. These 2 coins have remained in the Hurst family ever since and can be seen in this display. One of the coins has WE and 1797 scratched onto it. Anne died in 1857, 36 years after her husband had died. She was the great-great-grandmother of Richard, Paul, Elizabeth and Tim Elmhurst, who were descended through the second William. They have very generously given this sedan chair to the people of Barnsley and Worsborough. Thank you to them for their fantastic gift, and also thanks to our supporters for the donations that helped to restore it.
People have lived in Barnsley for thousands of years, so this area of our museum here, this slightly darker area, is dedicated to those people that lived not just centuries but thousands of years ago. And we've got here a wonderful new animation by artist Fabric Lenny, who is illustrating some of our mysterious ancient objects, such as this head here, and telling their story through animation. In this case here we've got some objects from the time of the Romans, dating back about 1800 years. We've got a snake-headed bracelet, and snakes often represented protection or fertility. So someone in Barnsley wore that wonderful bracelet all those years ago. So here we have a treasure hoard of Roman denarii, coins in this vessel here, hundreds and hundreds of coins with different emperors on them, and they were found in Darfield. So thank you for watching this video, and we hope to see you in the museum soon.